We're going to be back with Bill Black, think, as you're advising.
You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, you know, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, you know, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Well, it's Wednesday, and, you know, we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right?
we are still way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. You know, we would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or, you know, their names or anything like that. This is one of those, you know, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you know, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give me your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, you know, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, you know, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, you know, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that you know, one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush, with a stand. In fact, I mean, you know, how cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value, but it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts. With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed book plate in it. So, you know, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says "Democracy begins with you." With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where, you know, you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. You know, it'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online, and it'll be, you know, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You know, you and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program, see how we turned just a normal office in an office building into a television studio. And it's kind of cool, you know, all the technology and, you know, everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch. But it doesn't include travel arrangements. But, you know, typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, you know, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there. And but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, you know, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether, you know, I mean, premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution. But more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and you know, in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. We've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And, you know, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, you know, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. It is Wednesday. I'm back here in Portland. In fact, I'm doing a little riff this evening at Powell's Bookstore in downtown Portland, 7:30, about my new gun, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. But it's also Wednesday, which in the first hour of our program, which means it's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan is with us for the hour, taking your calls. He is the co-chair, along with Pramila Jayapal, of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. The website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. And Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
And I should add, for new listeners or viewers, Middays with Mark, Congressman Pocan comes on for the full hour and takes your calls on any topic at all. The telephone number, 202-808-9925. Well, any topic within reason, I suppose. But so, Congressman, you know, what's your sense of what's going on in Congress right now? We've got everything from appropriations to battles with the White House. And also, I'm curious your thoughts on how the Democratic primary is going.
Sure. Well, first, we are in the middle of our appropriation season in the House of Representatives. We have officially, as of yesterday, I serve on the Appropriations Committee, marked up all of the bills. We are debating, starting today, a group of, I think, 4 of them. I think they took one bill out. But we're grouping some of the bills. We'll be doing that for the next several weeks. The goal is to get that done by the end of June. But there literally are hundreds of amendments that are being filed. So we're going to go very late tonight, tomorrow, go back into next week, and then we'll finally vote on the bill. But this is part of the process that often didn't happen under the Republicans. So anyone who gets a bill ruled in order, which is most of the amendments, they can get a vote on it. And that's, you know, what we call regular order around here. Also, as you know, the Senate's not doing a whole lot policy-wise, pretty much, other than approving conservative judicial appointments. They're not taking up much activities. And then we also had
There's over 100 pieces of legislation, aren't there, that you guys have passed in the House of Representatives, including cleaning up our elections, preventing Russia or any other country from hacking into individual state and county election systems, health care, all kinds of stuff that.
Several measures on gun violence prevention, paycheck equity, women make 80 cents on the dollar, the Equality Act to make sure that everyone's treated fairly in this country, a good, strong retirement bill went to the Senate. There's a lot of things that
Mitch McConnell's sitting on all these things.
And they go there to die as long as Mitch McConnell is afraid of his constituents in a primary. So that appears to be what's happening there. So more of the activities on the House side right now, and certainly, as you know, there's a lot of problems with the relationship with the White House. A few weeks back, it was kind of this crazy, he was supposed to come up with this funding mechanism for infrastructure. The night before, he said he was backing it. He wasn't going to do that until we passed his trade bill. And then that morning when Nancy Pelosi said he was covering things up regarding the Mueller report, then that was the reason. So Donald Trump has lots of reasons not to do, yet again, infrastructure. And then most recently, we've been at real battles. Just today announced, President was using executive privilege on some of the information we need to know about a census question being added. So we're having all kinds of difficulties with the White House, and they're continuing to obstruct any witnesses from coming to Congress to testify on what happened in the Mueller report. So it's just a lot of activity.
Yeah, he's always got an excuse. I'm waiting for him to trot out bone spurs as one of his excuses. You know? And your thoughts on the Democratic primary? It really seems to be rolling along, and I'm not remembering who it is who might be hitting the threshold today. But we may have 21 candidates, which you know, who've qualified, which is going to be real interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the format works. I mean, I know they wanted to be inclusive, which is good, but at some point with 21 people, whether or not you'll get the content or not out of that, we'll find out. In some cases, I heard people were paying up to $10 in order to get someone to give $1 through social media in order to qualify. Wow. I don't know if that was the intent of what they were trying to do, but it sounds like they may change the rules a little bit on the third debate. But, you know, I think through this process, whatever the electorate decides is the greatest contrast to Donald Trump that can move forward will hopefully come out of this. And, you know, we're hoping that everyone will keep it, you know, in a positive manner. We did that in Wisconsin in our governor's race in a primary. Because of that, we beat Scott Walker. I think the same is true here. As long as we don't kill each other when, you know, we're doing the primary, I think we'll be a lot better off.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, let's pick up some phone calls here.
Sure.
David in Columbus, Ohio, listening on WGRN. Hey, David, you're on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Hello, Congressman and Tom. There's a complicated issue in Ohio right now. It's subsidies for failing utilities, bailouts for coal and nuclear. And it's split the Democrats, and it's also split the Republicans. The Democrats that support labor, and especially labor, sees this as a way that is destroying their jobs. But these are obsolete systems that should be retired, and they're dangerous. And Democrats need to unite here and create a system where we're helping cities and labor to help reclaim brownfield sites that are old coal plants and also decommission nuclear power plants. This is a complicated issue, but I think it should be part of anybody's Green New Deal.
Is that your question, David?
It's complicated, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, David, I agree. I think one of the things that the Progressive Caucus has done a lot of work with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez around the Green New Deal, and some of the parts that we've been trying to raise are this transition on jobs, because a good part of our base, as you mentioned, is concerned that if you have a good family-supporting wage, but maybe in an industry that is higher to prone to pollution, they're concerned about that job, because at the end of the day, that's, I think, what most people are most concerned about, is to support their families. Do they have a good wage? And we really need to make an important, integral part of a Green New Deal proposal talking about not just saying, look, we'll give you skills and a new job, and people are afraid they're going to make a fraction of what they made, but really be able to emphasize that transition to good-paying, family-supporting wages, jobs you can still organize and have a voice in your workplace. But, you know, in Wisconsin, Scott Walker ruined something we did when I was in the legislature, but we put a lot of investments in creating alternatives in energy, including things like making windmill blades, because they're so big, you know, you don't transport them real far, and then Scott Walker got rid of it. We can have those good family-supporting wages that are still largely some of the same skills, but we really have to make a big focus and emphasis on that. And I think we haven't done as good a job as we still need to do, but I think you're right. It's an absolute important, integral part of the Green New Deal.
Russ in Hickory Hills, Illinois. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Pocan and Tom. I was wondering, Don, you guys own the House. Can you guys subpoena Mitch McConnell's wife for the stunt she's pulling, giving Kentucky the $80 million to help him get reelected? Because it seems like that's a bribe or something. Can you make her explain what she's doing, or is she off limits?
No, I think, you know, one of the things we have on a regular basis, the standing committees of jurisdiction bring in the relevant secretaries, just like appropriations did. You know, beginning of this year, we brought in all the major secretaries to my Labor, Human Services, Education subcommittee, and I think you'll still have that happen. I just think right now the House has been occupied by a couple activities. One, how are we handling people not coming and testifying on the Mueller report, and two, right now the appropriations process. We're trying to do the process that's supposed to happen, and we've done that job, but we need to now finish it on the House floor, and I think that's occupying a lot of time. We're also trying to make sure we're ready to take up the minimum wage bill, which I think now we have enough support to put it on the floor. But not saying it won't happen because of any, etiquette or any other informal rules here. I think it's just a matter for the committees that have the proper jurisdiction to take that up, Russ.
Okay, Congressman Mark Pocan is with us for the hour, taking your calls. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. If you have a question for, or you want to suggest things to, the one of the real big cheeses in the progressive part of Congress, here's your opportunity: 202-808-9925. Congressman Mark Pocan also represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin. We'll be right back with more of your calls. It's Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And Congressman Pocan's website is pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at @RepMarkPocan. And welcome back, Congressman Pocan. Maybe it's summer because I have no calls right now. So if you're listening and you have a question or a call for Congressman Pocan, please give him a shout. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about and have for some time, and I don't think we've ever had this conversation, is we're learning more and more that the crops are failing in Central America as the result of apparently as a result of global warming, that drought and severe storms and things that in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, the weather, or the only small percentage of what can grow is growing. And just like we had climate refugees in North Africa, which led to the so-called Arab Spring, this concerns me. How can we deal with countries like this? How can we provide them with aid in a way that essentially compensates for the changing climate?
And even aid in a meaningful way that would help end some of the violence in the countries that is the main reason why people, especially in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, have been coming across the border. So if we actually address those issues, you're less likely to have people want to come here. And unfortunately, the Trump administration has had an absolute wrong-headed approach, which is to block funding going to those countries, which is just going to exacerbate the problem, which is what we're seeing right now, right? There's a surge at the border because of all the actions he's saying that he's going to put the wall up, they're going to shut down things further. People are deciding that they better do it now, and then, of course, that's why we have a little bit of a spike in numbers. But you're right, whether it be the agricultural assistance they may need because of what's happening to the climate and the planet, whether it be how to address violence. And it's not the same in every country. Honduras, part of it might be some of the government's issues that we're dealing with where the violence is coming from. El Salvador, it might be more gang-related, but we have to then be specific to the country if we really want to address people who are trying to come here.
Yeah, amen. Dan in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Dan, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Congressman, how's the Wisconsin redistricting fight going?
The Wisconsin redistricting fight is still in the courts, and we're waiting, I think, for a final answer. I think
you want to give us a quick background on that? I don't know what he's talking about.
Sure. So we had a challenge to the maps. Wisconsin is one of those states that's gerrymandered. For example, in the 16 cycle, 100,000 more people voted for Democrats for Congress than Republicans, but we got 3 of the 8 seats. Mm-hmm. Last cycle, 53% of the people voted for Democrats for the state assembly, but they got 36% of the seats. So we're one of those gerrymandered states. And that went to the Supreme Court, but then it got added to another state that had gerrymandering. And because of that, we're in a position where we're kind of waiting to see what the courts are going to say exactly and how we proceed.
What level of court is it at right now?
Supreme Court, now U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, so will that echo out to other states if they decide for or against you?
It could. I think There is a lot of belief that the Supreme Court may not take a position on this, so we may have to just wait for the normal process to draw our line.
Right. Remarkable. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives, taking your calls for the hour. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. And we just had a caller on, and he just vanished. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. And, I'm hearing the phone ringing, so, every line is full. Yeah, every line is full. It's just not showing up on my call screen software, so I guess I need to restart that software. Here we go. Paul in Lucerne, California. Paul, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Congressman. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom for having you on the show, and I'd like to thank you for being an awesome congressman.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. I'd like to talk about messaging. Remember how Republicans used to have debt clocks? They don't have it, but the institutions, think tanks still do, but the actual representatives don't. Well, as soon as we take the presidency back, they'll be back. So why don't we fight fire with fire? Why don't we have a corporate welfare clock? This is how much money we gave to subsidize oil companies. This is how much money GE got. We add it all together. We call that our welfare clock. And then we have another clock. We call that our jobs clock. How much money has the American people paid to offshore jobs? And then every time they ask us, hey, how are we going to pay for it? Well, we're going to do away with offshoring jobs. We're not going to pay for it no more. Or we're going to do away with giving GE tax subsidies. Or we're going to do away with oil subsidies. All kinds of money out there. And people don't know where it's going.
Yeah. Okay. Congressman?
Yeah, I hear you, Paul. I think we don't want to have multiple clocks, right? 'Cause that's one thing that then starts to confuse people. It's important, I think, you keep it still. There's a big understandable message that's out there. I think we're one issue you're bringing up that is really important to show people is the tax cut bill, where in 8 years, 83% of the money will be going to the top 1% of people. And we were promised all this economic growth, and there was a little peak when it first happened, and now it's pretty much done. And even Republicans are starting to admit that the growth didn't happen that was supposedly going to pay for that. So that's a great way to show we just put ourselves $1.9 trillion into deficit over an unfunded tax bill, and what that means, what you don't get for education or healthcare or other areas. So I think that might be one that you're starting to see some conversation, but we should find a really clear, concise way to get that message out.
Jim in Muskegon, Michigan. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for taking my call. The Republicans, as we know, are brilliant at messaging, and they've managed to pound away at socialism, equating with the Soviet Union and Venezuela. To counter that, I want to get your opinion on this. I think that FDR was a democratic socialist, and I think before the Vietnam War screwed up his presidency, so was Lyndon Johnson with the Great Society programs. Do we ask these people, with all the structural problems that are wrong right now with this country, do we say, what do you think FDR was a horrible president? Was LBJ prior to Vietnam a horrible president? Look at the things he accomplished that are good for the common man. That's a democratic socialist president. Would I be wrong to equate those two as democratic socialists?
Jim, first of all, I think we shouldn't let them try to define anything, and they've done this in history at other times, when we did Medicare, when we did Social Security, and they never got anywhere. So I think, taking the bait when we don't need to may not be necessary. I do think, though, that you're right. In fact, yesterday, and I have not had a chance to see the speech or the transcript, but Bernie Sanders made a major speech kind of trying to talk about what is democratic socialism. And I noticed his communications person, David Sirotto, put out an article today about talking about when Social Security was created, and pointing to that. So I think you're right that clearly many of the most important, most popular programs the federal government does, one could argue as socialist, and they did at various points when they were introduced, and they're the most popular programs that we offer. But I also think sometimes chasing every time they call you a name isn't in our best advantage. And, this is one where it never worked previously. It's not going to work this time. I don't know if I really want to go and have a debate on their terms when it's not useful. But I do think it is useful to talk about the programs that you're mentioning, Jim, that Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and these programs that people pay into and are wildly popular. We should explain that those are programs for the social good and that, we're not getting that out of Republicans. So I know what you're saying by the programs, and I think that's a good spin, but I think talking just about what they want us to talk about may not be to our best advantage.
Mike in Seattle. We have just about a minute to the break. And by the way, there are still apparently still some tickets available for the town hall when I'm up in Seattle doing a book signing. They had a smaller room. It sold completely out. A lot of people called in, heard that it was sold out, but there are seats available. But anyhow, Mike, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Is there any way to hold Mitch McConnell accountable, especially since he's been receiving donations from various voting machine companies, saying he will not take up the voting rights bill or doesn't think that there's a security problem because he thinks that the Mueller report is settled and there was nothing going on there? So why isn't he called out every single day? And frankly, his wife is suspect. How do we know that he not only favors things for Russia, but possibly for China, since his wife is family is a shipping magnet for China? So what's that all about?
Yeah, Mike, so I think, he is getting called out on a pretty regular basis because they're doing nothing in the Senate but passing conservative judges. I don't think, though, it's in particular to do with a voting machine company or anything else. Mitch McConnell is afraid of his constituents. He's afraid of the Donald Trump supporters in his constituency, that unless he is a complete sycophant and does whatever the president says, that he'll be challenged. That's our real barrier.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Not to mention the billionaires who support Trump, who are probably supporting McConnell, too.
Yeah, on every issue across the board.
Yeah, there you go. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. And we'll be back with more of your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan's website, pocan.house.gov. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Well, it's Wednesday, and, we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right? But we are still way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. We would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or, their names or anything like that. This is one of those, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give me your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that, one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush. With a stand, in fact. How cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value. But it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts.
With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed book plate in it. So, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says "Democracy begins with you." With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. It'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online. And it'll be, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program. See how we turned a normal office in an office building into a television studio, and it's kind of cool. All the technology and everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch, but it doesn't include travel arrangements. But and typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there, but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution, but more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. We've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I may be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. And David in Tacoma, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. And Congressman, thank you. My question is kind of a comment. I like to talk with people of a variety of political stripes. I notice when I talk with Republicans, it's always about what is financially right. I feel like their morals kind of sit on what is profitable, whereas many liberals of my friends and whatnot tend to sit more on a moralistic stance about how things are. But with that in mind, something we came across seems like if the U.S. invested more in Latin American countries to help manufacturing grow there, we might be able to make some argument to say, hey, why don't we help these countries develop and create manufacturing so we can pull some of that manufacturing from overseas, and especially in Asia like China. So I wanted to see what you thought about speaking to our Republican counterparts more on that language, because I feel like we can get more traction that way. A second question I have is, what is the congressman's stance regarding UBI and Andrew Yang's stance on UBI? And I'll take the answer off the air. Thank you very much.
Sure, David. So I see what you're saying is how can we talk to the Republicans to try to bring them on board? Unfortunately, I really feel the Republicans, it is so rare for them to break right now from Donald Trump that the Republican Party looks more like a cult these days than a conservative political party, which makes it difficult. No matter what issue, they're afraid within their own primaries of being challenged by Trump supporters that we're not able to have a lot of conversations. Now, having said that, one problem could be is that we're still supposedly telling people we're going to bring jobs back to the USA, and if we're helping bring jobs to a different country rather than the U.S., that could be a difficult conversation. But I do think there still is some logic to if we help curb the violence in the countries where people are fleeing, because they're fleeing not so much because of jobs, but they're fleeing because of the violence, you could stop the folks from those three countries coming here. And that still, I think there's a logic to it, but these days logic and the Republicans don't work as well because of this kind of cult of personality that they seem to have around Donald Trump and the way he behaves towards them. Second, I don't know really anything about his proposal because out of all the candidates for president, they all have lots of ideas. On universal basic income, I have really not given it a full look. There's a bill that Ro Khanna has that I am supportive of that I think gets you looking at it a little closer, but I'm not familiar with Mr. Yang's proposal, and I can't really address it in a fair manner, David, so I'm sorry.
Laura in Los Angeles, listening on KPFK. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
I'd like to know what you would think about this idea to address climate change and climate refugees. There's a company called Green Wave that's doing kelp farming, and I think we could have kelp farms all along the coast from the Aleutians to the base of South America, and we could set up floating areas with the kelp farms where people could live on them and be kelp farmers.
Yeah, Laura, it's interesting. I'd love to know more about that program. However, I do think that what we're finding is most of the people who are coming right now to the border are fleeing violence in the countries they're coming from. It's not an economic consideration necessarily, but it's a consideration due to, I think in some ways, the Honduran government in Honduras and probably more gang and other related in El Salvador and in Guatemala. So we have a way to really address it, and that's the problem is Donald Trump has said he's going to stop funds going there, which actually works to the opposite goals that we want to. So, having those farms may be helpful for some who maybe aren't finding employment, but most folks are just trying to flee the violence in their countries. We are such a beacon of hope that they're looking at coming here, and with all the rhetoric the president's put out about blocking and stopping people from coming across the border, they're all coming now because they want to do it before it's too late, which is why we have right now some impacted numbers to deal with. And then, of course, we're dealing with it horrendously from the Trump administration perspective. So I think it's important to remember violence is the main driver for people coming here.
Kenyatta in Redlands, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
I wanted to talk about that dirty, filthy, disgusting I word for a moment. It seems to me as though the Democrats are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And this is what I mean, Congressman and Tom. If Donald Trump is impeached, he's going to say his base is already animated towards this. It's part of the hoax. It's a continuation of the hoax. If he's not impeached, he's going to say that proves that it was a hoax because they couldn't even impeach me. I wanted to know from a strategic standpoint what the Democrats plan to do with regard to that. And secondly, I wanted to know also, here we have the executive branch evading subpoenas, sticking his thumb, literally, the president is in Congress's eye. Now, the average person, we get a subpoena, we've got to answer that subpoena. And I want, this is very demoralizing to the base. And in terms of checks and balances and congressional oversight, I wanted to know if the Democrats really understand, how this looks to the base, that this guy's just running roughshod. I'm not going to do this. Nobody's going to testify. If they're equal branches of government, how do you address this?
Yeah, Kenya. So your two questions to me are related. It's a very central dilemma that we have. There are some of us, myself included, who are saying we should start the impeachment inquiry because this president is continuing to defy Congress by continuing to obstruct any witness coming before us about the Mueller report, which, again, doesn't pass my Wisconsin smell test, which is if you're really innocent, you'd want to give them a ride to the hearing, give them a big bottle of water so their voice was really clear as you explained how innocent Donald Trump was, and yet he's acting like anything but an innocent person. We really believe that when you get witnesses to come and talk about what's in that report and provide additional detail, the American people will see the areas that Mr. Mueller, laid out for Congress to deal with the 10 possible charges of obstruction. That's why he doesn't want any witnesses to come before Congress. So I think it's just so important that we figure out a way to get them, and I think the best way I know of is the impeachment inquiry to start that, where we can have a few more levers to get people to come. To be fair to Nancy Pelosi, she has tremendous weight on her shoulders. If she makes the wrong call and he gets reelected, the weight is on her shoulders. There are as many pro and con issues you could throw out there on impeachment. I try to look at it not as a political issue, but a constitutional issue. My oath was to the Constitution, not to the Democratic Party or to Nancy Pelosi. And therefore, if I feel, and I've read the report, that he likely has done obstruction, then I have to deal with this, even if it means Mike Pence is the next president. But if we can't get anyone to come to be witnesses, and the vast majority of Americans, rightfully so, have not read the Mueller report, they're not going to get the information that we have, but it's now public information. And the best way to do that is to get people answering questions on TV and then getting that information out. So we are in a conundrum a bit, and we have to figure out how to get those witnesses forward. For many of us, impeachment inquiry is the path, and I think that's the conversation we're having right now in Washington.
Ed in Washington, D.C., you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Congressman, what if Congress passed a huge appropriation, let's say for infrastructure, in good faith, given that this emergency declaration is open-ended? It was just upheld like a week or so ago by some court. Wouldn't that be giving Trump a blank check for border wall or anything else?
Well, the real problem is Donald Trump doesn't know how to do infrastructure, right? I mean, last year, how many times did he have Infrastructure Week, and then he blew it up by tweeting or saying something stupid or silly? And the most recent is we had an agreement between Democrats, Republicans, and the White House to try to put together a $2 trillion package. The president's only homework was to come up with how to pay for it, and the night before his homework was due, he's supposed to present how he's going to pay for it. He sent out a letter saying, well, until you do my NAFTA bill, I can't do infrastructure. And then that morning when Nancy Pelosi accused him of covering up what's in the Mueller report, which she's right, he is, then he said, oh, that was the reason. So this guy doesn't know how to do the very thing that he says he wants to do, which is infrastructure. So we're going to move ahead and put bills out there. But I don't know if this president is capable of actually governing, even if we happen to agree on spending money on infrastructure. I don't think he knows how to do it.
Bruce in Columbus, Ohio, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, this is Bruce Posey calling. Thank you all for being on the air. I enjoy listening to you. I have two questions on Medicare for All. If Medicare for All is truly for all, won't that eliminate Medicaid? And if so, what happens to the state dollars? Right now, the state provides roughly 40% of the cost of Medicaid. So would that just go back to the states, or would they have to kick into the insurance plan?
So there is a bill that Pramila Jayapal has introduced in the House, Bernie Sanders in the Senate, and they had a hearing today in Ways and Means on it. So that's the second hearing on this bill, and I think right now, actually, they may be just wrapping up a press conference on it. So the proposal right now has no chance of moving forward with this current Senate and President, but we are doing the informational, educational expansion, trying to allow people to understand what this is about. I think people are just frustrated with the current system. Even the Affordable Care Act, because of the death by 1,000 cuts that Donald Trump has done, has been less efficient, and people are having higher deductibles, and that takes away some of the affordability of it. And I think many people are just, Medicare is one of the most popular programs we have. If you can use that framework and model with some expansions, things like vision care and dental and others, that you could have a plan that would work across the country, and that would impact what you're talking about, which is part of the financing of it and how you deal with it. Our big quest right now is to get the CBO score, the Congressional Budget Office score, because then you can kind of really see that in print and then have that full debate. So I think, Bruce, you're right. There are dollars that are going to be shifted from the other programs when you have a universal program like this. The bill whatever proposal may not look exactly like the bill, so that's something that also has to be debated. But when we get that CBO score, we will have a real substantive document to work off of to show people the path on this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, as the owner of a small business here, this program, it'll really help us with workman's compensation, too, which will become redundant, right?
And that money then, Tom, you're more likely to invest back in your business.
Yep.
And that's going to stimulate the economy.
There you go. Amen. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. It's Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program. His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And I should say brilliantly represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan. And welcome back. Carol in Idaho Falls, Idaho. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. I have a question. Do you have any sense that the Democrats have a plan B if we should lose the presidential election for winning the Senate, perhaps? Maybe that would be a good idea, since even if we win, if our candidate wins the presidency and we still have the Senate with Mitch McConnell in it, and he's not going to let us do anything, I don't really see the point. Do you have an idea of the DNC's alternative plan?
Yeah, so first of all, just real quick, the DNC won't be doing the plan. It'll be the Senate Democratic Campaign Committee. So the Dem Party nationally doesn't necessarily do that. But I do think it all rests on the presidential race, because how we do on the presidential race will impact the Senate races in probably the most significant factor out there. I don't think there'll be another issue that would be a differing factor than how the race for the presidency is. So it really does matter who the nominee is, what issues they're running on, and how that contrast is provided, because that's going to get the most attention and drive people to the polls. Russ Feingold never should have lost his getting back to the U.S. Senate, beating Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, had it not been for a 200,000 Dem voter drop-off, because Hillary Clinton, quite honestly, never came to Wisconsin, and there were some other issues, but we lost 200,000 Dem voters. Had we not, he never was behind in a single poll leading up to Election Day. Russ Feingold would be the U.S. Senator again from Wisconsin. So the presidential race really is the biggest determining factor, and I think we just have to really put our effort there, as well as the U.S. Senate and House races. But that race will be the biggest determining factor.
Abby in Tacoma, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for doing this every week.
Thank you.
I have a question, idea about Medicare for All that kind of relates to what the last listener was talking about, but on the employer side. So I'm one of the really lucky people where my employer pays for about 100% of my insurance. And say we transition to Medicare for All, they no longer have to pay that much money. I'm sure they'd save billions of dollars a year, and lots of other employers would. What happens to that money, and could that maybe be transferred to the workers to, quote unquote, pay for Medicare for all? Or at least taxes might go up, but also your base salary goes up, so there's more money to, like, maybe it comes out in the wash. Do you follow what I'm going for
Yeah,
here?
no, totally, Abby. This is something that Tom and I have talked about a lot, both being small business owners. I think they say the cost of health care for building a car is more than the cost of steel in the car. So when you finally change that factor, one, you have money you can reinvest in your business and hire more employees. But two, there may be however the financing of the system comes, there could be something that would be perhaps part of the payroll tax, and that would be a small portion of it, potentially. But the real thing is you're going to have that money that went towards health care now going back into the business, back into the economy. And I think that will have the ripple effects you're looking for to really help out. So, that is a really important point to make whenever we talk about a single-payer system.
We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan on Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. It's 10 minutes before the hour, more or less. We'll be right back. And welcome back. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Pat in Maple Valley, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes. Thank you for taking my call. People think Congress isn't doing anything, and somehow the House leaders need to figure out, and the Democratic Party, how to get attention to all the things they have done to promote the number of bills that they've passed and that Mitch McConnell won't allow to be voted on. Otherwise, we're going to be like we were in 2016, where people are saying, throw everybody out because nothing gets done in Congress. And I realize we have a big blowhard in the White House that sucks all the air out of the room. But somehow Democrats have to figure out how to get attention to all the good they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. Two things. One, we are working with groups to try to, now that we've got our final batch of those priority bills we promised voters last November, how to amplify the message and put the pressure on Mitch McConnell because he's not taking anything up. So we will be having those conversations over and over. But two, part of our problem is getting the mainstream press, so to speak, to cover it. Because I'll be honest, we're going to do a media availability in a few minutes for the Progressive Caucus. I guarantee some of the very first questions that come out will be about impeachment rather than some of the media issues that we're actually going to be bringing up in the press conference. And that's one of my arguments to my Democratic leadership is that if we start an impeachment inquiry, not only does that help us compel witnesses to come to talk about what's in the Mueller report, but then we can say to reporters, all right, we just started the inquiry. Have a little patience. You're going to have now some ability to get this information. But, hey, we did this week, and you can cover that. If we can walk and chew gum, certainly you can walk and chew gum as well. And I think it gives us a way to pivot to start making them cover some of the many, many bills that we're passing that are really substantive right now out of the House of Representatives. But it is a real problem, Pat, and we do recognize that, and we have multiple strategies to try to get that message out.
Tamara in Carl Junction, Missouri. Correct my pronunciation, please. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm getting really mad. First, we bailed out the banks, and they kept the money and pocketed it for their CEOs. Now Congress has allocated $19 billion to help farmers because of Trump's stupid trade war with China. I want to know who's investigating the two Brazilian brothers, Batista, who got $64 million of that money and saying that they're handing it out to their American ranchers, not farmers, but ranchers that produce meat. I want to know why, because there's shady brothers in Brazil that pay off. They're being investigated for paying off Brazilian politicians. Where is that taxpayer money?
Yeah, Tamara, so I'm going to say something that doesn't directly answer it, and obviously that will be something that as they have hearings in the relevant committee's jurisdiction, it'll come up. But I think far, far more important to stress on this so-called assistance to farmers because of the president's lack of having a trade policy isn't so much that some Brazilians got the money, because that has gotten some press. What hasn't gotten the press is how little the farmers are actually getting compensated in relief because of the president's terrible trade lack of policy. He doesn't have a coherent policy. So in my state, soybean farmers are getting about 50 cents on the dollar they're losing. A dairy farmer is getting about 2 cents on the dollar. A corn grower about 1 cent on the dollar. So, I understand why we have to watch out for the people who grow our food, right? Because we have to have that supply. There is a national security aspect, I think, even to that. But the fact that they're not really, this is just cover for the president to say he did something when his trade policy has spurred these tariffs that are really killing the family farmers. We lost 800 dairy farmers last year in Wisconsin alone. And I just talked to a farmer who I think is a Republican who has come in my office almost every year, family farm for generations, talking about selling his farm because these tariffs are hitting him so hard. I think you get that message out, and we get a far stronger message about what Donald Trump really is about and what he's not about.
Yeah, and how ineffectively he does what he says he's about.
Incompetent.
Incompetent. It's extraordinary. Congressman, we just have 35 seconds to the end of the hour, so not enough for a call. So let me just toss it to you. What should we be looking at in the week going ahead? And for those of us who like to call our members of Congress, what should we be saying?
Yeah.
What's on top of mind?
Thank you, Tom. Two things. One, make sure that any big bill to lower prescription drug prices is actually that. Call your member and say, make sure you have something big and bold, not weak and meek, because we're having a debate within our caucus on this, and it will be decided in the next few weeks. And secondly, to calendar the minimum wage increase bill before we take our August break. We think we have the votes right now for it. We need to get that done. So prescription drug prices and minimum wage increase.
Great. Congressman Mark Pocan, thank you so much for being with us today, Congressman.
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you so much, as always.
It is great having you on this program every week, and I know our listeners really appreciate it, too. His website, pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. We'll be back. We're going to dig into the news and the politics of the day right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
From New York, I'm Luke Fargett.
We say fight back!
Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. Complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Well, it's Wednesday, and, you know, we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right? But we are still way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. You know, we would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or, you know, their names or anything like that. This is one of those, you know, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you know, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give me your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, you know, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, you know, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, you know, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that you know, one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush, with a stand. In fact, I mean, you know how cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value, but it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts. With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed book plate in it. So, you know, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says "Democracy begins with you." With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where, you know, you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. You know, it'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online. And it'll be, you know, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You know, you and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program, see how we turned a normal office in an office building into a television studio. And it's kind of cool, you know, all the technology and, you know, everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch, but it doesn't include travel arrangements. But you know, and typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, you know, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there, but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, you know, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether, you know, I mean, premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution, but more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and you know, in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. We've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And you know, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, you know, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I know a number of people called in for Congressman Pocan and are kind of hanging out on the line. I'll be picking up your phone calls as we move along. But there's a few things that I wanted to bring up here as we go into these next couple of hours. The number one, America is terribly divided right now. In fact, the New York Times had a piece by Timothy Williams, I believe it was yesterday. Yesterday. Titled, "With Most States Under One Party's Control, America Grows More Divided." And it turns out that basically every single state, with one single exception, is controlled by a Republican governor, a Republican House or Assembly, and a Republican Senate, or by a Democratic governor, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate. That would be the case with California, the Democrats. It would be the case of Louisiana, for example, the Republicans. And they're moving in these radically different directions. I mean, he points out in his article, Illinois. Once Illinois got J.B. Pritzker, a good Democrat, as governor of Illinois, boom. I mean, they're moving forward. They have deemed abortion a fundamental right for women, no matter what the Supreme Court says. They have raised the minimum wage, or they're working to. They're taking steps to legalize recreational marijuana. They've introduced a graduated income tax. And I would say, hey, about time. They have a flat tax in Illinois. On the other hand, he points out in Alabama lawmakers voted to ban most abortions. They eliminated marriage licenses so that probate judges opposed to same-sex marriage wouldn't have to sign them. And they approved requiring sex offenders who commit crimes involving kids to undergo chemical castration at their own expense. And, again, Kay Ivey of Alabama earlier signed an abortion and marriage license bills. I mean, so we're seeing basically these very, very different directions that our states are going in as a consequence of these takeovers. And in fact, I would argue that the Republican takeovers, the state-by-state Republican takeovers, are really the pinnacle of the achievement of the Koch brothers with the American Legislative Exchange Council and these other groups that they have started. And numerous groups all have freedom in their name somewhere to take over state government, state by state by state. And where you see the Democrats, surging back, it's where people have, for some time, as in Illinois, we had a Republican governor for a while and saw what was going on and said, we don't want that, thank you very much. We would like to have good infrastructure. We would like to have decent schools. Republicans don't want to have any of that. They don't want to pay for it because it would involve raising taxes on their donor class, which they're unwilling to do. And so, it's all about the money. So, and in fact, I would say that, probably the vast majority of this divide,
at least the Republican end of this divide is being driven by big money, which, you know, comes out of the Supreme Court's Buckley decision in '76 and their Citizens United decision in 2010, among others. And I mean, you know, corporate personhood going back to the 1880s, explicitly, and arguably going all the way back to 1815 or 1814, and the Dartmouth College case. So all of this, so what the Republicans have done is, you know, in efforts to keep their taxes low on their donor class, you know, they're raising fees on all the rest of us. They're making it so that Democratic states, if you live in those states, you can't deduct your property taxes and things. You can't deduct your state income taxes more than $10,000. I mean, this is part of Trump's reform of taxes, so that the states, those states that actually have good public infrastructure, have good public education, they will have higher state taxes, of course, because you have to pay for these things. And it used to be that you could deduct your state taxes from your federal taxes. Now people in those states that have done good by their people are getting screwed by Donald Trump and the Republicans' tax scam, the GOP tax scam. And they're also working to reduce regulation, which is something that we call public protections, right? You know, regulations of poisons in the air, poisons in the water, the things that are you know, carbon products, methane and carbon dioxide, that are destroying our atmosphere and possibly bringing out extinctions. Well, certainly bringing out animal extinctions. You know, the human race itself could be facing extinction, or at least some very, very, very serious problems in short order. And then you get, you know, the Catholics and evangelicals, you know, kind of getting into bed with each other. This happened right around the time that Reagan was elected. Prior to that, the evangelicals were in favor of a woman's right to choose an abortion. They decided to change that position and join the Catholics. And now this has become, you know, part of the Republican coalition. They're drawing these people into their party. The NRA and guns, that's the Republican coalition. Bigotry in the form of opposition to gay marriage, you know, and promoting so-called school choice so that they can keep schools white, you know, and all this kind of stuff. The Republicans, because their agenda is entirely economic, they've only, you know, they've had to cobble together these coalitions of other people who are, like, you know, out there, right? And so the big question is, as this all tears America apart, how do we bring this country together? Will our democracy survive this process? And adding, you know, pouring gasoline on the flames, you've got right-wing hate radio in you know, well over 1,000 towns across the United States, and you've got Fox News 24/7 pouring gasoline on these flames. You know, the billionaire Rupert Murdoch, as Kevin Rudd, the former Prime Minister of Australia, wrote in an op-ed for the Sydney Morning Herald back about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so. I shared it with you on this program. You know, he said, in fact, the title, the headline, was Rupert Murdoch is a cancer on the democracy of Australia. He owns over half the media in Australia. He flipped Australia to the right several times, and Australia now is really struggling with that. There's a big movement even to privatize their healthcare system coming out of these billionaires in Australia. One of the biggest political actors in Australia is a woman who is the richest person in the country. She owns a bunch of mining concessions, including coal mining. And so they're now Australia, the right-wing politicians, the Republicans of Australia, that's not the name of their party, but you know, their equivalent are trying to shoot down climate change. Why? Because they've got a big donor who's a fossil fuel billionaire, just like the Republicans in the United States taking money from Charles Koch, so, you know, or through his organizations. So how do we survive this? How do we make it through? As long as these special interests, and make no bones about it, these are special interests. The fossil fuel industry, the fossil fuel companies, they make money poisoning us. When we burn gasoline in our cars, the exhaust that goes into the air causes cancers. We know this. The soot that goes into the air causes lung disease and COPD, you know, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. We used to call it emphysema. You know, all of this, or a lot of this stuff, and of course mining coal, you know, black lung and things like that, whereas if we did like China's doing right now, or Norway is doing, Norway has said, hey, you know, after next year, I believe it's next year, it might be the year after, you cannot sell a car in Norway, a new car in Norway, that has an internal combustion engine. Their goal is to have all of those cars just phased out entirely. More than half of all the cars right now in Norway are electric cars. And electric car technology is to the point, very successfully now, where typically electric cars will run 300 miles on a charge. And, you know, that's a great long distance. And the chargers are getting faster, the batteries are getting better. You know, it's really working. So there are all kinds of solutions here. But the Republicans in the United States and conservatives around the world, you know, back to Kevin Rudd's op-ed, he said, you know, Murdoch destroyed democracy in Australia. Then he moved to the United Kingdom, you know, bought the Times of London, bought a bunch of tabloids, is trying to buy a television network there. I don't know if he's pulled it off or not, and poisoned the politics of England, flipping England to the hard right, Maggie Thatcher and all her heirs. And then he moved to the United States and flipped the United States hard right. And it seems to me, now this is just my opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, but it seems to me that this money in politics, this media monopoly, these media monopolies essentially, where, you know, the owners of these large radio networks that have, you know, literally hundreds and hundreds of radio stations will tell you to your face, as one has told me to my face, actually two of them have told me to my face, no, I'm not going to put progressive programming on because you progressives want to raise my taxes. And, you know, just right out front, right? And on Fox News, you've got, you know, Murdoch just pouring this poison constantly, day after day, into the bloodstream of America, as he has done in the UK and as he has done in Australia, as the former Australian Prime Minister is, you know, enthusiastically telling us. What do we do about this? And are we at risk of really just tearing this nation apart because of all this poison, and because the Republicans are, you know, fundamentally have no interest in improving the general welfare? I mean, everybody says, oh, the enumerated powers of Congress, that's the only things they should do, right? Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Read it sometime. It opens by saying Congress can appropriate money for the general welfare. It closes by saying Congress can appropriate money for the general welfare. It lists, you know, 8 or 10 or 11 or whatever it is, things that specifically they want Congress to do. But it's not a limit. It's not a limit. But for, you know, for the Republicans it is. They're saying, oh, no, you can't do anything more than that. That's it. You know, that's, and so the coalition that they're pulling together of gun people and anti-abortion people or forced pregnancy people and companies that don't want to be regulated, you know, in particular the fossil fuel industry, and bigots, right, from, you know, anti-gay and trans bigots to you know, racial bigots. That's their coalition. None of those groups have a positive agenda for this country. In every single case, what they're selling is fear and hate. So you've got an entire political party that is doing two things. Number one, shoveling as much money as they can from working class people up to the billionaires. Trump has got, what, a half a dozen billionaires in his cabinet, number one. And then number two, they're joining with people who are basically all about, you know, hating other people, or trying to regulate, trying to control women and their bodies, trying to control, wanting to have, wanting everybody to be able to wear a gun on their hip. It's incredible. Speaking of which, by the way, I'll be at Powell's tonight here in Portland at 7:30 if you're interested in doing a book signing there. But the big question, how do we bring this country together? It seems to me like we really have to challenge this whole system.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And get money out of politics. But if you have other thoughts or other suggestions, or you even want to salute that, give me a shout. We'll talk after the break. It's 18 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. And hey, isn't it obnoxious when your computer's constantly throwing things up at you? Mary in Ventura, California. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Hi. Yeah, well, my topic was Medicare for all, and there's a case for Medicare for all and also for kind of part of the funding of it that I don't hear anybody making, and that is that industry produces these products which many years later may be found to be a health problem. And it doesn't even have to imply that it was intentional. It's just that it takes a long time for the effects to be made known, like Teflon, talcum powder, asbestos, the trans fats, the Roundup, and now there's the microplastics that we're finding inside of everybody's body. And so that's kind of the demand side of Medicare for All, that because the industry is creating the demand for it, that they should be contributing to the payment of the health benefits for everyone who is exposed to these hazards without any culpability on the person who's exposed fault. And then on the other side of it, now that we have this whole digital revolution and are realizing that our data is something of value, that like what you had in the story of the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks, that a lot of just the data of ordinary people contributes to the advancement of medical science. But so on the supply side, the regular people who would have a very hard time making their cases individuals for what is their personal contribution to the advancement of medical science, and also would have a hard time making the case is what is their personal suffering from ill effects of a product that's in production. That therefore we should have a system of Medicare for all that brings all these risks and benefits into one system, and that would be better for everyone, for the health of the general population and for the advancement of medical science, which benefits everyone.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Mary. And I mentioned earlier that workman's comp would no longer be necessary, Medicaid would no longer be necessary, and frankly, I mean, look at this rather pathetic scene right now in the United States Senate where Mitch McConnell is saying, oh, it's time to refund, to put money into the first responders to 9/11 because they're getting sick, they're dying of cancer and lung diseases and things. Well, I didn't, we'll have to think about that. Screw them, basically. And Jon Stewart is there begging for money. If we had Medicare for all, the first responders would have been covered. There's this whole spectrum of areas where people are not getting the coverage that they need. And as Alex Lawson was talking about day before yesterday on the program, there are these holes that Republicans have drilled into Medicare already with, the so-called Medicare Advantage and Medicare, with the 20% that you have to have private insurance for. All of this needs to be cleaned up, and we need to have a very simple, straightforward, single-payer healthcare system that covers everything in your body, covers your mind, covers your eyes, covers your teeth. It's very straightforward. Mary, you made a great argument for it. Thank you very much for calling. Thanks for listening. We'll be back. It's coming up on 23 minutes past the hour. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
WHOM. And welcome back. Michael in Crestline, California. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
With all this cabinet scandal going on, and the latest with McConnell and Chow, why is nobody speaking about the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, McConnell got the sanction lifted on Deripaska, and now he wants to build a $27 million aluminum plant in Kentucky for McConnell?
Yep, I think it's more than that. I thought it was $200 million, but it's substantial, whatever it is, yes.
So I guess here's another thing that McConnell gets away with.
We'll see. And I hope that that the corruption of Mitch McConnell and the corruption of Elaine Chao, the Democratic Party sends out every day this they call it the war room. They send out kind of the issue of the day. And the one that they sent out today is, how did Mitch McConnell go, 8 years ago from being worth $2 million to today? Well, I mean, his wife is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, so I guess his family's worth a lot more. But his personal net worth went from being a little over $2 million to now it's over $23 million, if I'm remembering the email correctly.
It's big.
Yeah, and where'd that money come from? I mean, how did he pull that off, right? And then there's another question, and Michael, thank you for the call. There's another question, which is, are the Trump kids or the Trump extended crime family, are they profiting on knowing in advance when Trump does things that actually move markets? When he tweets something like, hey, I'm going to do a tariff on Mexico. Well, there's a bunch of companies that do a lot of business in Mexico. Their stocks go down. Or I'm going to stop doing the tariff in Mexico. Well, then these companies, their stocks go back up again. And his tweets have been moving markets aggressively now for 2 years. And we have no idea if his family members, if Jared and Ivanka and, other members of the Trump crime family are making money on this. And, several Democratic members of Congress have said, hey, what the hell's going on here? We would like to know. There's so much stuff that I think, frankly, Congress should be looking into. This is just we're just scratching the surface. Wilbur Ross, our Commerce Secretary, used to be half owner of, one of the banks in Cyprus that was laundering money for the Russian mob out of Russia. And apparently the Russian mob in the United States. And apparently not just the Russian mob. There's a whole bunch of them. A whole bunch of different countries' mobsters. And then, is Donald Trump laundering money through that? Is that why he's got Wilbur Ross, who keeps falling asleep during cabinet meetings? Is that why he's got him in his cabinet? Elaine Chao and her family making all this money on shipping in China. Her family's Taiwanese. What's that about? What's going on there? It's amazing. It's the most corrupt administration ever.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I think, possibly with the exception of the Coolidge administration, but even, with the Teapot Dome scandal and all that stuff, I think this is the most corrupt administration we've ever seen. Well, it's Wednesday, and, we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right? But we are still way, way, way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. We would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or, their names or anything like that. This is one of those, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give me your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush, with a stand. In fact, I mean, how cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value, but it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts. With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed book plate in it. So, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says "Democracy begins with you." With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. It'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online. And it'll be, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program, see how we turned a normal office in an office building into a television studio. And it's kind of cool, all the technology and everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch, but it doesn't include travel arrangements. But and typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there, but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution, but more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. We've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I may be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And, we're talking about, well, a variety of things, but among them, saving the Republic and as in our democratic republic. And we've got a big lift here. And we've got some fascinating new information coming out about glyphosate, also known as Roundup, and children's cereals. I'll be sharing that with you in the next hour. And some thoughts from Terry Canfield on lessons that we can take, by the way, from Chile's experience with autocracy, where they were taken over in a military coup by Pinochet. And we'll get to that. One thing that I did want to share with you real quickly, and then I'll pick up your phone calls, is this newest Quinnipiac poll, which is fascinating. The media seems to be constantly saying Biden beats Trump, right? Biden beats Trump in the polls. Biden beats Trump in the polls. And Trump, the meme that Trump is putting out is that, Biden is the guy that he's going to go, he's the gladiator he's going to fight against. But the other Democratic candidates do pretty much just as well. Biden in this latest Quinnipiac poll, and this I think is a much bigger story, frankly, than just the Joe Biden part of it. Biden beats Trump 53-40. This is a national poll. Sanders beats Trump 51-42. Kamala Harris beats Trump 49-41. Elizabeth Warren beats Trump 49-42. Pete Buttigieg beats Trump 47-42. And Cory Booker beats Trump 47-42. So basically, the top 6 Democratic candidates all easily, handily beat Donald Trump. Now, keep in mind, the billionaires have not yet begun to pour their money into the elections. And, that's going to change the dynamic considerably, particularly in the 3 months just prior to the election in November of next year. But at this point in time, there's a lot of reasons for optimism. But, we can't get complacent. We can't sit back and say, oh, yeah, Trump's going to lose, because, there's a very good chance he's not going to lose, particularly if we don't really, really get activated. So back to your calls. Don in Orange, Texas. Hey, Don, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I'm a long-time listener, and my problem is I think that I feel that the Progressive Party of the Democrats are not focusing on the Senate side. There should be a change in the Senate and not worry so much about the president as controlling the Congress.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Don, 50%. I agree that there should be a lot more focus on the Senate, that there are a couple of people running for president right now who I think who are not senators, but who could be running for Senate in their particular states, and I wish they would. We need, because they're high-profile people in their own states, and the Senate, is where all these toxic judges are being approved. But it requires a president to send them to the Senate, which is why for the last 2 years of the Obama administration, Mitch McConnell refused to. I think he let one judge through, maybe, and of course he bottled up Merrick Garland for almost a year. So we need both. We need both the Senate and the White House. But your point is well taken, Don, and it's one that we all need to be paying attention to. Thanks a lot for the call. Mary in Arlington, Texas. Hey, from Texas to Texas. Mary, what's up?
Well, I just wanted to speak about what we just heard on the news about President Trump pulling out of Germany and going into Poland.
Right.
Because they didn't pay the right amount of money. Now, there's something wrong with that picture. And if the people can't see that if you are not a member of NATO and don't do the right thing, guess what? You're going to lose your status.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That came long before Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Long before. One of the things, I'm 79 years old. I remember a lot of this stuff. And one of the things they don't realize is that we had a tradition with all these countries that we would give our best to them on their soil so they wouldn't fight over here.
Right, or with each other.
And the rest of the story is that for that, we didn't have to pay because we were furnishing these spots.
Right.
Now, I might be wrong, or I don't know. But if we'll trace history, I think we'll find that it is pretty right.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that what Trump is doing with regard to Poland, the president of Poland now is a right-wing strongman, just like the president of Hungary is, and you know, there's in fact several countries and some of the former Eastern European countries that have all moved toward autocratic government.
Yeah, but Tom, he's pulling a trick on us. Once again, look at what I'm doing here. And that is not the case at all.
Yeah,
he's not doing anything good for us. He is bringing us down.
Yeah, I agree, Mary, and he's trying to punish Germany, which is, you know, a full-fledged democracy. Mary, thank you for the call. He's, you know, and I you know, I think he's just, this is part of his, you know, ongoing, continuous process of sucking up to autocratic governments. And you know, right now Poland is another one. Glenn in Falls City, Washington. Hey, Glenn, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I was hoping to catch Representative Mark, but that's all right. I enjoy listening to you anyway, and you're a wise man. So my thinking is a messaging issue with primary, and I wonder why no one has really gone after Trump's eligibility due to the campaign finance issues, even though they are based in the tabloid realm. It's still a violation.
In other words, had he not paid off Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, odds are he wouldn't be president.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As well as being helped by Russia, which is clearly stated in the Mueller report, whether there be collusion or no collusion. Either way, they helped him. He's not legitimate.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't consider him a legitimate president. I don't think he was legitimately elected. The third variable is the hundreds of thousands of people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania who had been thrown off the voting rolls by the right-wing governments of those particular states. It was over 1 million down in Georgia, but you know, Georgia wasn't a swing state, didn't decide the election. But the states that did, these are very, very big issues. Bill in Midlothian, Virginia. Hey, Bill, thanks for listening on Sirius XM. What's up?
Oh, thanks, Tom. And I'm a long-term listener, but I like to listen to you, but I disagree with you on several things I heard today. But I'll stick with what I told the lady, the screener. Illinois is such a top-notch, top-drawer state. How come it's almost insolvent? It's losing population, and there's a concern that to pay for the problem, just to bail themselves out from the back, that they'd have to raise taxes, which politically, apparently, they don't want to do. I don't see how you can cite that as a state. I understand some of these social things they did, but I don't understand it. Illinois is probably listed as the worst-run state in the country.
Well, Illinois is part of the industrial Midwest, and the industrial Midwest has taken a huge hit since Ronald Reagan decided that it was just fine to ship our jobs overseas because labor was cheaper there. I can't, unfortunately, Bill, I can't speak directly to your points because I don't know if they're true, and if they are, I don't know the basis of it. I don't live in Illinois, but perhaps somebody who is in Illinois will, be listening to our conversation, will give us a shout and set us all straight on this. But I was using them as the example. It was the example in the New York Times about a Democratic-run state moving forward, doing things for their people, making life better for their citizens, versus the Republican-controlled states that just seem interested in regulating women's bodies and making guns more available and increasing the level of poison in their own states. And that, that's how that split breaks out. Tim in Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Well, I've got a simple solution to all the world's problems. So what's happening now, and you have to understand this. I was in sales and marketing for 35 years. I'm retired. I've been in the same house in the same neighborhood for 29 years. I've seen the socioeconomic development of the area that I live in. I walk the neighborhood. I talk to everybody. There isn't anybody in this neighborhood that couldn't hand me their keys if they were leaving town, and I'd take care of their house. My dad, you had an author on that was talking about the bottom up. My dad had a 10th grade education and ended up being a success, and it raised 5 boys, all of whom now have perfect credit. We own everything we have, and we have a wonderful public education. And what's happening now is these young people, especially the 18 to 20, 25-year-olds, they aren't interested in what's going on in politics. And I see that. I talk to them every day. There's approximately 22 homes in my immediate area here. You know how many people take the daily newspaper now? 2.
Wow.
People aren't aware of what's going on. And what the Democrats need to do, instead of having 50 people run for president, they've got to go to college campuses, high schools, women's organizations, and lay out the facts. Show them pictures of the Koch brothers and Herman Adelson and Rupert Murdoch and saying, these are the people that are trying to destroy your life, which is what they're doing, and they don't understand that.
Yeah, and give the real examples. We need distillations of Jane Mayer's book, Dark Money, among other things. Tim, I'm with you, and getting the vote out is vitally important. Thanks a lot for the call, Tim. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in 4 minutes with Talk Media News. Bob Ney, former congressman from Ohio, now reporter for Talk Media News, will be sharing with us what the latest news is, and I always look forward to talking to Bob. He's got so many insights into this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
So stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. And welcome back. Paul in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching us on your Roku box on Free Speech TV.
Hi, Tom. I heard you talking about how the United States is tearing itself apart, and you and I were part of the generation where we've been through this before from the Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 1979, there was a huge movement, food co-ops. I'm sure you remember that. I was at a conference in Austin in '79. Ralph Nader came out. He was talking to oil executives or something in Houston, I guess. Excuse me. At any rate, one of the things he said was, if everybody in America donated $1 to we didn't have political action committees, so basically like some sort of an election fund. He says we'd have $200 million. He said we could buy America back from the corporations. Same problem we had today. It's been around for a while. It's probably on a scale much larger than we could have imagined back then, but it's the same idea. Today, what I've done is I've canceled a lot of my outgoing income to things like Sling, my cell phone, my smartphone. My wife has one, but so we don't have 2 now. So it's like an extra, $100 a month. It's going to free speech. It's going to other alternative media. $4 a month is going to my congresswoman. If we don't pay for the things that we won't get them. And it's not because money is bad. It's because in the complex 325 million society, money is part of the distribution mechanism. Sure. Money is how things are allocated. There is a corrupting aspect to money, but at the same time, the simple nuts and bolts of money is it's how things are distributed. We don't have a grand vizier, then we stand in line at the dawn and, plea our case to have something from the realm of the king be, allocated to us. We use money to do that. It's just too much going on. People, if they want to have democracy, will have to support it financially, just like we have to support Medicare for all financially and public education financially. It doesn't fall from the sky.
I'm with you, Paul, and it need not be huge money. If a lot of people donate just a few dollars, whether it's to their favorite media or whether it's to their favorite politicians or both, and then also people who are listening to us on nonprofit media. It's not just Free Speech TV is not the only nonprofit media that carries our program. We provide our program for free to all the Pacifica stations in the country, or Pacifica affiliated stations. There's hundreds of them. We're on a good chunk of them.
Sure.
And it costs a little money. We raise money to do that.
but people help fund and support that through funding our program. And of course, they're funding Free Speech TV, which is in a fund drive right now. So if you're listening on a Pacifica station and they're in their fundraising drive, and I know a bunch of them are right now, I've recorded some things for them to play on their local stations. And any of them are welcome to contact us, and I'll always record these things at no cost. Glad to do it. Turn them around in a day. But and if you're listening on commercial media, I mean, we're on commercial stations too. Call up their sponsors and say, hey, I'm going to buy your stuff, or I can't afford to buy a couch right now, but when I can, I will come to you because you advertised on this program. There's a lot of ways that we can be supportive of these systems and of our politicians, without being billionaires or even millionaires, just helping out. And Paul, good on you for everything you're doing. Thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Bob Ney will be with us in just a moment. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Let's check in with Bob Ney and find out what's going on in the world today. This Talk Media News report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com. And Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book. Bob, welcome back. What's on your mind today? What's at the top of the list?
Well, thank you, Tom. Actually, at the top of my list was the Mexico deal, but I'd like to revert for a second to the Cadre story. I don't know if you carried that on Monday with the real estate company owned by Jared Kushner.
I didn't. Yeah, I read the article, and I may have mentioned it on the air, but we certainly didn't do a deep dive on it. Tell us all about it, Bob.
Yes, and because there's a follow-up story today, I think, that may not deal directly but indirectly with it. But it's a real estate company. It's owned by Jared Kushner, and he has received $90 million in foreign funding from a very opaque offshore vehicle, offshore Cayman Islands, the Panama Papers, all that type of thing. Right. And that's since he entered the White House as a senior advisor, of course, with his dual role of business and senior advisor to his father-in-law, Donald Trump.
Right, so I'm betting this is money out of Saudi Arabia?
Yes, we'll get to that point. Okay. That's it. It was money from a lot of foreign entities, but investment flowed from overseas companies, while Kushner works, of course, as the international envoy, particularly to the Mideast. And this was the Cayman Islands in this particular case, and that's a tax haven, for listeners that aren't familiar, that guarantees corporate secrecy. Even if you're an American, it guarantees corporate secrecy. And so the bottom line is there is Saudi money, yes, into it. They know of at least $1 million of the Saudi money. There might be more, and there's other foreign entity monies. And that is also, it's owned by, the vehicle is managed by accountants in the Cayman Islands, and it's owned by another offshore Goldman Sachs entity. Mm-hmm. They have another offshore company that's tied to it.
Wow.
So, that's the thrust of that.
And this
story.
is money he's gotten since he's been working in the White House?
Yes.
And now, Bob, he and Ivanka don't draw a paycheck, if my recollection is correct.
That's right.
Does that make them immune from congressional oversight?
No. It doesn't matter if they take $1 or $100,000. They are under congressional oversight because of their positions.
Right.
So it's irrelevant. It may be in their minds, but it's irrelevant.
So are there any congressional committees that are planning to subpoena him?
Well, not as of yet. This first story came out Monday. Now, here's the story today, though, and this could be where House Foreign Affairs Committee would want to do this.
Right.
The Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs, his name's R. Clark Cooper, refused to answer questions at the House Foreign Affairs Committee about Jared Kushner's involvement in the decision to sell Saudi Arabia weapons over the objections of the Congress, including the objections of Republicans, of course, were involved with that,
Right,
too.
because these weapons are being used to kill children in Yemen.
Yes, correct. And the Saudis wanted the weapons. Now, he refused to answer these. If you look at his line of questioning and answers, it was Representative Keating that was questioning him. And eventually, Kushner conceded, eventually Clark conceded that Kushner is one of the lines of communication. But if you look at his testimony, which was public today, he was asked by Representative Keating, what about the overall issue of providing arms to the Saudis? Was Jared Kushner involved in that? Don't define it so narrowly. And Cooper's answer from the State Department is, I'm not defining it narrowly. I'm talking about emergency declarations, which was condition-based. This is his answer. So Representative Keating says, no, I want you to answer my question. It's pretty simple. You were involved in all of this because this R. Clark, Tom, he was central to the entire deal of the emergency, not just giving arms to the Saudis after the Congress said no, but the emergency.
They had to, didn't they have to declare an emergency in order to get around Congress? That's why they did it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They had to. Congress was making it very clear what they felt about Saudi Arabia, the Khashoggi incident, Saudi's behavior, et cetera. And so Representative Keating again says, was Jared Kushner involved? And Cooper says, not in the emergency declaration. Representative Keating says, no, I'm asking you that. In discussions with the Saudis about arms sales. And Cooper says, I see what you're asking. And he goes on and on. And so finally Keating says, was he involved? And he again repeats, not in the emergency. And finally, at the end, not to drag this out because it goes on, he said he could be one of the lines of communications.
Oh, jeez.
Now, this is under testimony of a State Department guy that is obviously very publicly unable to answer a very simple question. And Clark, Tom, was involved in the sales from top to bottom.
Wow.
So I think with this story coming out Monday, and with this, and the past history, of course, of Kushner's father and the Middle East monies and Qatar and on, I would think that Congress would want to look in that direction and see if Kushner is willing to tell.
So let me get this straight, Bob. Just to boil this down, it sounds to me like what you're saying is that Jared Kushner got $90 million through the Cayman Islands, laundered money basically, apparently much of it from Saudi Arabia, and in exchange for that money, that bribe essentially that he got, he changed the policy of the United States in defiance of the House and the Senate, both Democrats and Republicans, changed the policy to say, yes, we're going to continue to sell weapons to the Saudis so that they can continue to kill children in Yemen because they gave me money. Is that the bottom line? Are we looking at a bribery scandal here?
That is absolutely, totally plausible. And since he has arrived in the White House, this is a fact, he has received $90 million in foreign funding, and he sits with the international control as an envoy officially in the Mideast. I mean, the pieces are all there of what you said.
Plus, he got $1 billion for 666 Fifth Avenue, too, didn't he? Out of the Middle East?
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, we've got grifters in the White House. It's insane.
I think there's more to this story.
Yeah. Bob Ney, Talk Media News. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
it's Wednesday, and we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right? But we are still way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. We would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or their names or anything like that. This is one of those, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give them your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush, with a stand. In fact, how cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value, but it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts. With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed bookplate in it. So, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says democracy begins with you. With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. It'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online. And it'll be, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program, see how we turned a normal office in an office building into a television studio. And it's kind of cool, all the technology and everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch, but it doesn't include travel arrangements. But and typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there, but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution, but more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and you know, in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. We've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And, you know, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, you know, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, you know, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, you know, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to the third hour of our program. Thom Hartmann here with you. This is sick. That's what the governor of California said when he was told that the Trump administration is planning on on imprisoning more than 1,000 children. These are climate change refugees coming up from Central America. Yes, they're fleeing violence, they're fleeing gangs, but what's provoking the violence and the gangs? The collapse of the economies of those countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras. What's provoking that? Their crops are failing. They're failing because of climate change. They're failing because of desertification. They've got major droughts going on, you know, all around the world at roughly equatorial levels, you know, between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. We are seeing massive droughts. And then just north of that, in the temperate regions, like the central part of the United States, we're seeing massive floods. This is the predicted outcome of climate change. And, excuse me, now we have these thousands and thousands of children, climate change refugees, coming to the United States and saying, please save us from, you know, as our countries are thrown into poverty, as the economy slides into disaster, who steps in? The gangs, the military, the crackdowns. So last year in the United States, the Trump administration detained 59,171 children. Children. One of the fastest growing industries in the United States right now is private prisons, and the fastest growing part of that is private prisons for children. And they keep calling them immigrants in the media. These are not immigrants, these are refugees. And we have specific laws about how we treat refugees, and one of the things that we don't do is put refugees in prison. And we don't take children away from their families, except that that's what Donald Trump has been doing from the get-go. This year so far, and it's only June, Trump has taken 40,000 children. And they're putting some of them in Fort Sill. Fort Sill was used to inter Japanese during the World War II. It was also used to hold German prisoners of war. That's the kind of facility this is. And Donald Trump and Steve Miller are sending these children to these places to be imprisoned. And then on top of that, you got John Kelly, the guy who was the architect of this whole program when he was Trump's chief of staff. John Kelly is now either an executive or a member of the board, I forget which, but one or the other, of one of these large private prison companies that's specifically building these facilities to house refugee children. And what is this doing to these children? What is it doing to these families? It's tearing them apart. And this is just the beginning, my friends. We are looking at, the tip of the iceberg, to use the metaphor. And by the way, if you didn't see our movie about this, Ice on Fire, last night on HBO, for HBO subscribers, it was last night. Tonight, it'll be on HBO, HBO Go, HBO Now, outside of the paywall. So if you're not an HBO subscriber, you can still watch our movie. Sean saw it last night. Thank you, Sean. And just loved it. It is, the photography is astonishing, but the message is also pretty powerful, and I think you're really going to get it. And we are, the climate refugees that we're seeing here now, the climate refugees that Europe has been seeing over the last decade, mostly from Northern Africa and the Middle East, the climate refugees that are causing chaos in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, those countries, they're having climate problems now, crop failures and things in China. I mean, there is no part of the world that's not impacted by this. Record-setting heats in Australia. It's gonna get worse. And the answer is not to put children in prisons. This is Trump's answer. And this is just absolutely sick and twisted. We've been talking for the last couple of hours about, we've talked about a whole variety of things, and of course Congressman Pocan was on for the first full hour taking your calls. But we've also been talking about how the Trump, the essential criminality of the Trump administration and the fascist tendency. It's not even a tendency. Donald Trump is running the fascist playbook. Divide people from each other, foster and whip up hatred, not just political division, not, hey, my side has better ideas than yours, but, my side hates your side. Build up hatred, reduce people's trust of media, eliminate their trust for institutions of governance. This is fascism. The only winners in fascism are the big corporations. Fascism, the definition of fascism is the merger of state and corporate interests combined with belligerent nationalism. That is exactly what we are seeing right now. There are over 130 events now so far planned for this weekend, June 15th, on Saturday, June 15th. There's going to be one here in Portland at 11 o'clock. Where is it, Sean? At Terry Shrunk Plaza downtown. And they're happening all over the country. So far, 134 have been organized. As of last Friday, it was only 75 of them. So people are, taking to the streets, as it were. And so just check it out, the National Day of Action. It's co-sponsored by Move On and by the People and other groups, this National Day of Action. So, something to check out. And finally, Terry Canfield tweeted just a fascinating thread. And I'll retweet it here during the break if it hasn't already been done. I'm pretty sure we haven't retweeted it. I'll do that. I'll take care of that. But Terry, she notes that in September 1973 in Chile, General Pinochet pulled off a military coup and installed himself as a dictator. He was able to do this because the two political parties of Chile had basically gotten so far apart, and this is something that we've been talking about throughout the last couple of hours, is the tearing apart of America, the Democratic Party trying to build a country that works, trying to do things for the people. for the general welfare of the people as envisioned in the General Welfare Clause of the Constitution. It's repeated three or four different times in the Constitution. It's in the preamble. It's at the opening of Article 1, Section 8. It's at the end of it. The Democratic Party trying to do what's good for the working people and average people in the United States. The Republican Party trying to do what's good for the billionaires and the multimillionaires, giving them massive tax cuts, increasing our debt, trying to end Social Security, trying to drill more holes in Medicare. Trying to prevent children in Republican-controlled states from even getting access to health care, trying to prevent women from having access to abortion as a form of health care. I mean, this just all of this. So anyhow, Pinochet in '73 pulled this off because their own two parties were so polarized. By '78, the two parties, Terry Canfield notes, by 1978 in Chile, the two parties started talking to each other. You know, it was the fact that the country had been taken over by a dictator, literally, that brought the two parties together. Eventually, she writes, they rebuilt trust, and by 1985, the anti-Pinochet forces came together and signed a national accord for a transition to a full democracy. And democracy was, in fact, restored. But it was this brutal dictatorship. I mean, you know, Pinochet... I was at a right-wing rally a couple of months ago, and somebody was wearing a T-shirt that said "Throw liberals out of helicopters." That's what Pinochet was doing. He was taking, you know, opposition figures and you know, taking them up a couple thousand feet in helicopters and throwing them out to their death. It was a particularly brutal and terrifying way to kill people. And so Terry says, what happens if we find ourselves in an actual autocracy? What happens if Donald Trump loses in 2020 and him and Fox News and right-wing hate radio say, oh, but it's a phony baloney election. It was rigged. The Democrats hacked the election. They, you know, the Democratic states, they hacked the voting machines or whatever. You know, if he says this and he refuses to leave, what do we do? And Terry's suggestion is Democrats need to find common ground with Republicans on things where they actually agree and pull together. I'm trying to figure out what those things are. I think there may be some, and in fact, this might be. I had breakfast on Saturday, I think it was, it was Saturday morning in New York City with Julio Rivera, who comes on this program and debates me from time to time. It was the first time we've actually hung out, you know, face to face in person, and we had a very nice breakfast and conversation about what our differences are, and also about the things that we agree on, and there actually are some. And, Terry makes the point, hey, I met a cancer researcher who developed chemo drugs. She told me if she got cancer, she'd immediately go on a macrobiotic, it's a vegan diet, as the best way to organically fight cancer. And I thought, why wait? Why not start eating more, veggies, rice, and beans right now, right? And she says the same thing with getting out of an autocracy. Why wait until Donald Trump turns himself into a full-blown Augusto Pinochet-style dictator? Let's bring this country back together now. Let's reach out to our Republican allies and friends and family members. She points out Trump is a master at manipulating and controlling the national conversation. He was trained by coaches at NBC when he was doing The Apprentice on how to do reality television. He did this for a decade or thereabouts. And he knows how to run a reality show, and that's what he's doing. Every single day in the White House, he's trying to figure out, okay, how do we get the words Donald Trump on the front page of every newspaper in America and leading every news story? It doesn't matter if it's good, doesn't matter if it's bad. As P.T. Barnum said, I don't care what they say about me, just be sure that they spell my name right. And that's what Trump has been doing, with the help of Sarah Sanders and Kellyanne Conway and a number of his Republicans. He's also a very skilled con artist. And most of the people who are Trump followers have been conned. They don't realize, who he really is and what he's all about. And he's cynically employing, this is a Yale professor, Jason Stanley, says Trump is cynically employing fascist tactics, not just to seize power, but to enrich himself. And Terry notes there's a proportion of our population who are fearful by nature. They are by nature averse to complexity and uncomfortable with diversity. And, we can't do much to change who these people are, but we can reach out to them. After Trump came along, he knows exactly how to manipulate them. And by the way, that field was sown way back in the Reagan years. And then the right-wing billionaires have been adding to that. So Terry's suggestion is all we need is about 60% of Americans to figure out that Donald Trump is a con man, a hustler, and a grifter. And maybe we can save ourselves.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
What do you think? We've got that, plus we're continuing conversations from previous hours. I'll be taking your calls right after the break. And welcome back. Lyle in Youngtown, Arizona. Hey, Lyle, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV.
Tom. Thanks for taking my call. It's been a while since I talked to you. That's an amazing talk that you just had about, fascists.
Lyle, I'm having a real hard time understanding what you're saying. If you have me on a speakerphone, would you please put it on regular or get your mouth closer to the microphone?
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, that sounds better. Start over.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking my call, Tom. That was a really great talk you just had. I mean, I was so impressed with that. And, when you were talking about the rise of fascism, and earlier you were talking about Rupert Murdoch's media empire, and how he has spread that through the countries like Australia, the UK, Poland, Austria, Hungary, and all those places, These guys are he's in cahoots with Steve Bannon, of course. And Bannon was down in Brazil helping Bolsonaro get elected. It's kind of one of those house mouses that, you try to get rid of, but you just all scampering all over the place. But anyway, I can't help but to go back to my college days, and I studied history a great deal, and I was very much interested in studying the Third Reich and how they started. Now, this guy Bannon and Murdoch, Joseph Goebbels would be just wringing his hands in delight.
He's from the grave. He's applauding Donald Trump every day.
Yes, indeed. And you always say about how history repeats itself, and those who don't know history will allow it to repeat again. And I think we're going back to another cycle like that. I don't know what you think about it, but you took so many words out of what I was thinking about in your last talk. I know it's just impressive. Yeah. I just love to listen.
So Lyle, what's the bottom line here, if we can summarize what you're saying?
Well, I think I don't know if a lot of people have studied about this, about the transformation of government and how
fascism happens, essentially.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's how it happened. And then I was also reading something about the Fourth Reich and neo-Nazis. And,
the Fourth Reich?
Are really serious. The Fourth Reich.
The Third Reich was Hitler's Germany. What's the Fourth Reich?
It was Hitler's Germany, and the Fourth Reich is what's going on now. That's the neo-Nazi vision.
Yeah.
The Fourth Reich is featuring Aryan supremacy and anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Lehman's wrong.
I get it.
So,
I get it. Yeah, and here's how it happens. And Lyle, thank you for the call, and thanks for your kind comments. This is how it happens. This is how fascists take over. First, they sow fear. Right? Be afraid. Be afraid of those brown people coming over the border. Be afraid of those black people in the inner city. Be afraid of, just be afraid. Be afraid of the Jews, and be afraid of the women, and feminazis. And first they sow fear. And then once that fear is well established, once the roots are in the soil, then they sow hate. They convert that fear into hate. Oh, you shouldn't be just afraid of those people. You should hate them. They're murderers and rapists, don't you know? And then once they have torn people apart from each other with this dreadful fear and hate, to quote Dwight Eisenhower, then they seize government, seize the power of government, through those divisions, and then they turn that government against itself and against its own people. And we are at least 50% of the way into that process. We'll be right back. And welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. We're going to do a geeky science coming out of the break at the bottom of the hour, by the way. I've got some more Monsanto glyphosate news that I think is going to shock you. In the last hour, somebody had called and asked me why, if Illinois is so wonderful now that they've got a Democratic governor, why are they losing population or something like that? I forget what the specifics of the right-wing meme were. And I notice I've got 2 calls on the board here from people who want to directly answer that. So I'm going to pick those up first, and then we'll get into the other topics. Vicky in Harvard, Illinois, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Vicky, what are your thoughts?
Hello?
Hey, Vicky, you're on the air.
Oh, hello? Oh, am I on the air?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm in New York driving through. One of the things I wanted to talk about were the taxes. I think people are confused at what a graduated tax is and a flat rate tax.
Right.
And people think right away that, oh my gosh, I make $250,000. I'm going to get taxed on that $250,000 at 30% or whatever it is. But it isn't like that. It's you're taxed up to, let's say, your first $100,000.
Did we just lose Vicky?
Oh.
She's yeah. Vicky, I'm sorry, we just lost you. I think you must have hit a dead zone. But George in Chicago, listening to WCPT, wants to weigh in on the same or the similar topic. I'm assuming, George. That says Illinois politics here. You want to follow up?
Yes. I'm just a citizen, okay, but I vote in every election, and I do my best to keep up with everything and stay active. Just as a suggestion, a discussion on this matter with Dick Kay of WCPT would be illustrative because he's covered state politics.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And he knows everything and everybody. But just briefly from my limited point of view, in the recent past, we had 26 years of uninterrupted Republican administrations in this state. 14 years of Jim Thompson, 8 years of Jim Edgar, 4 years of George Ryan, who would have won re-election if he hadn't run afoul of the federal authorities and ended up serving time for corruption. And during that 26 years, the Republicans never had control of less than one house of the legislature and often 2. Most recently, this administration of Bruce Rauner, who had never held office before in his life and had spent as much time out of the state recently as in the state because he is a wealthy billionaire with houses and installations all over the place, and had made a sizable chunk of his fortune, ironically enough, on setting up public pension plans and such things. But his administration proves that it's not just the Democrats and the working class that get beaten up by this juggernaut of Republican billionaires and unlimited money. It's longtime Republican office holders. During the time that Rauner was governor, he had 2 major objectives. One was to destroy public sector unions in this state in particular and unions in general. The second thing was drastic tax cuts. And reasonable Republicans who held office in the House and the Senate for long periods of time were bullied beyond belief by Rauner and his people that if they didn't toe the line on everything he said and did and sing his praises, they would be primary.
George, we just have 10 seconds. Is the bottom line that what you're saying is that if Illinois has problems, it's because of 20-plus years of Republican rule?
And because during the 4 years of Rauner, he forced the state to run without a budget, and all these problems were not addressed.
Yeah, okay. Makes perfect sense. So a Republican calls into the show and says, gee, the Democrats have taken over Illinois now. Why does Illinois have all these problems? Thank you, George, for answering the question. I appreciate that. And it makes perfect sense. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls, the news of the day, and my special geeky science right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Children's cereal contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals? Yes, stick around. I'll tell you all about it. Well, it's Wednesday, and, we're halfway through the week, or we will be, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how you parse a 5, right? But we are still way, way, way behind, and mostly it's because of last week. Monday and Tuesday were okay. We
would have met our goals had it been an ordinary week where we had hit our goals pretty much every other day, but we're still in a pretty deep hole. And so we really need your help. Free Speech TV, this program, we need your help. So please, if you have not yet contributed to Free Speech TV, consider becoming a Free Speech TV donor. They don't sell their email addresses or their list or, you know, their names or anything like that. This is one of those, you know, unlike some of the political campaigns I've discovered, you know, you sign up for something or you take a survey or whatever and give them your email address and suddenly you're getting 500, you know, emails from everybody in the world. That will not happen here. Free Speech TV is very, very careful and circumspect about, you know, keeping your privacy private, essentially. So your donation is just to Free Speech TV and this program, you know, on Free Speech TV, making all this happen, and is really needed right now. The number is 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get a roll of the new Trump toilet paper. And I am hoping that you know, one of these days soon that that I can get one too. And with a $50 gift, you get the Trump toilet brush, with a stand. In fact, I mean, you know, how cool is that? And with a $60 gift, you get both, which is a $70 value, but it's with a $60 gift. These are one-time gifts. With a $120 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, that's got an autographed bookplate in it. So, you know, you'll have an autographed copy of the book. That's a $120 one-time gift. With a $20 a month commitment for the next year, you get a Thom Hartmann stainless steel water bottle that says democracy begins with you. With a $30 a month sustaining membership gift, where, you know, you're committing to give every month, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, plus you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag. So that's kind of cool stuff. With a $500 gift, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet. I've described it a number of times. You know, it'll be on probably Zoom, and we will be talking online. And it'll be, you know, it's not going to be just played or anything. It's just us talking. You know, you and me and the other $500 donors, which is typically a fairly small group of people. And we've done something close to this in the past, and it was fascinating. So I look forward to talking to you online if you're one of the people who takes us up on that offer. With a $1,000 meet and greet, you can either come here to Portland, and I'm back in Portland today. You can come here to Portland and hang out on the couch here in the office, in the studio, and watch us do the program, see how we turned just a normal office in an office building into a television studio. And it's kind of cool, you know, all the technology and, you know, everything that Sean is doing and Nate is doing and Nick and Joyce and everybody. It's fascinating. I think you'll find it really interesting. And by the way, that includes lunch. I'll buy your lunch, but it doesn't include travel arrangements. But you know, and typically it's a group of people, just a small group of people that gets together for the meet and greets. Or you can come to a meet and greet that we're going to have in Philadelphia on July 12th. If you're coming to Netroots Nation, you know, that big annual conference that used to be put on by the Daily Kos people and now has become kind of its own thing. That's July 12th in Philadelphia. We'll be doing a meet and greet there, but that's only available to people who are $1,000 donors to Free Speech TV. So, and that'll be nice. The appetizers, drinks, you know, so it'll be fun. But the bottom line is whether, you know, I mean, premiums are nice, right? It's nice to get a little swag for your contribution, but more importantly is whatever you can give that you call now. Call today, 877-378-8669. We need to get this fundraising program back on track. We are badly off track. And like I said, I don't know if this is because I pre-recorded some fundraising appeals last week, or if it's because people are giving money to campaigns, and you know, in either case, I completely understand. But we've got to make this work. we've got to keep this network on the air. We've got to keep this show, at least from my point of view, I hope from yours. We've got to keep this program on this network. And, you know, if we don't hit our goals a couple of fundraising cycles in a row, everything's at risk, seriously. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We don't have any, billionaire benefactors. We don't have any corporations that are pouring money into our coffers. It's all coming from small gifts from you and people like you. So if you have not yet become a Free Speech TV donor, please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I may be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. We got Powell's here in Portland, and if you've never been to Powell's, plan on spending a day. It's an amazing, amazing bookstore. Okay, our geeky science alert. I wanted to share this with you. And somewhere we've got some geeky science music. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, this is from EWG.org, the Environmental Working Group. Major food companies like General Mills continue to sell popular children's breakfast cereals, they write, and other foods contaminated with troubling levels of glyphosate or glyphosate. I've heard it pronounced both ways. That is the cancer-causing ingredient in the herbicide Roundup. And it was detected in, I'm quoting from the article, it was detected in all 21 oat-based cereal and snack products sampled in a new round of testing commissioned by the Environmental Working Group. All but 4 products contained levels, all of them had glyphosate. All but 4 of them contained levels of glyphosate higher than what the EWG scientists consider protective for children's health with a sufficient margin of safety. This is pretty mind-boggling. Since last August, 3 California juries have awarded more than $2.2 billion total in 3 separate verdicts against Bayer Monsanto over claims that Roundup caused cancer and that Monsanto knew about the risks for decades and went to extraordinary lengths to cover it up. So how is this getting on the oats? It's the same thing that they started doing with wheat back around 2000, and to this day I'm convinced that my whole celiac, I just can't eat gluten anymore. My whole celiac thing is somehow related to this because it was around the same time. When the machines come to harvest the wheat, if the wheat is still alive and green, when it's kind of like a pair of scissors that slice the tops off, and like a giant paddle wheel from a paddle wheel boat against a blade. And if they're still green, then a certain percentage, 10-15% of the wheat heads don't get chopped off. They get just they gum up the machine. So what they do is they spray Roundup, glyphosate, over the entire crop at harvest time. Wait 3 days until everything is dead. It kills all the plants. They turn brown and they also turn brittle. And that way, when they run the harvesting machine over it, it pops off 100% of the heads. And apparently they're doing this with oats now as well. And this is the whole new thing, and it's showing up in our children's cereal. And this is mind-boggling. And of course, as long as Trump is in office, the EPA isn't going to do a damn thing about this. At least we've got the courts right now. But we'll see where we go with it. Brad in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. Hey, Brad, what's on your mind today?
I really feel that climate is a zero-sum game, and by that I mean if we gain, others lose, and this is most dramatic in the equatorial regions becoming hotter and the floods coming our way. However, the refugees that are displaced by all of this or are fleeing this, it really is our responsibility, absolutely unequivocally. And we tend to think we can have it all, and there's no consequences for our profligate behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have right at the tip of my tongue the percentage, but my recollection is it's somewhere between 25 and 50% of all the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has come from industrial activity in the United States. I think it was 25%. And, and we're only 4% of the world's population. So, I agree with you, Brad. The refugees are our responsibility. And we shouldn't be tearing families apart and putting children in prisons that were used as Japanese internment camps. That is obscene. Derek in Chicago. Hey, Derek, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, it's a privilege to speak with you.
Well, thank you, Derek.
I wish I had the money to donate to the show, but as I told the person that answered the phone, I'm disabled and I'm trying to live off of $1,200 a month.
Yeah, no, we're good. The thing you can do to help our program and other progressive programs, Derek, is tell people about it. If you can get a couple more people watching, maybe one of them will help out and support our sponsors in the case of our commercial stations, or support our nonprofit stations and free speech. But Derek, what's you had a point you wanted to make?
Yes, I look at what's going on like a Monopoly game. And playing the game of Monopoly, once you monopolize the board, the game is over unless you give up some of your property and money to the game to keep it going. So what's going to happen when the powers that be monopolizes all the money?
Well, we're damn close to it, Derek. And the Monopoly game was invented back in the 1920s, by the way, by a woman whose first name was Mary. And she did this to warn people about exactly what you're talking about, Derek. The Monopoly game was originally a way of demonstrating how business will basically, suck up everything through monopoly and destroy economies. And that becomes a zero-sum game, to use a phrase from the previous caller. So.
Wow, that's something else. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. Thanks for the call. We're in answer to your question, what happens? We're seeing it in real time. In Europe, for example, where they have net neutrality and they require competition among internet service providers, the companies that you get your broadband from, at home, they require that competition. Like in France, there's over 100 companies you can pick from. It doesn't matter who runs the wire into your home or the cable into your home. There's over 100 companies that you can, and the average cost of internet in France is around $30 a month. The average cost here in the United States is around $90 a month. Why? Because you've got 4 companies that control most of it. One company that controls about half of all the internet in the United States. That's what happens with monopoly. It's happening with drugs and drug prices. It's happening with hospitals and hospital prices. It's happening, pick your industry. It's happening all over the place. And it's something that we really need to be doing something about. Tim in Mesick, Michigan. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Hey, Derek, I feel your pain, brother. Oh, man, Tom, I love your show. I love the network, and I've done everything I can do to keep it on the air because you maintain my sanity and nourish my mind.
Well, thank you, Tim. Let's get right to your topic. You wanted to talk about union pensions?
Yes. I'm a retired union construction erection machinist that installed printing presses from the LA Times, Chicago Tribune, New York Times, Globe, and Herald. And I just got this notice from my pension fund that it's in danger.
Oh,
and what I need to know is if the Democrats are going to federally protect union pensions.
Well, the attack on union pensions started with the Reagan administration when Ronald Reagan
I know that.
changed the rules.
Norquist.
Yeah.
First thing you do.
Oh, yeah. Take out the unions. Yeah, but the problem that we have right now is that the Republicans, are in control of the Senate. So, the Democrats have repeatedly passed legislation over the years to protect pensions, and the Republicans shoot it down, or you get a Republican president shooting it down. So I agree with you, Tim. This is a big issue, and the federal pension guarantee program, I believe that's the acronym for it, in fact, is badly underfunded right now and needs to be fully funded because this is all about human beings. And we're not talking big money. We're not talking Pentagon kind of money. We're talking, just, a few $1 billion. but it's not even a fraction of what the Republicans gave away in the $1.5 trillion tax cut from the year before last, for billionaires. So this has to be done. And I guarantee you, Tim, the Democrats are on it. But the problem is that you've got Trump in the White House and you got Republicans in the Senate. So what we have to do is everything we possibly can to help Democrats take back the Senate and to be sure that Trump is a one-term president. Frankly, no other option, in my opinion. Mark in San Francisco, listening on AM 910. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Yeah. I want to talk about messaging for the Democrats. They really need to message about Social Security and Medicare being cut by the Republicans. There's a whole voting block of people that are collecting it that shouldn't vote Republican because they won't have it.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And part of that messaging problem, I get these press releases constantly from Schumer's office and from various Democratic organizations, and they're screaming at the media. They're holding press conferences. Mark Pocan said as soon as he got off the air today, they were going to do a press conference. Well, it'll be interesting to see if any of the media pick it up, because by and large, the media only picks up press conferences when they're from hard right groups or from Donald Trump. And, because the media makes money off the circus, which is really, really unfortunate. But, Mark, spot on. Your point is very, very well made. Gary in Baden, Pennsylvania. Or is it Baden, Pennsylvania? Gary, what's up?
Hello, Mr. Hartman. It's Baden, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Gary, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I wish I was a little closer. I would love to meet you one of these days. It'd be an honor.
Thank you.
Here's what I think. We're going to cut to the chase. You know me as a man that cuts to the chase, don't you?
Yeah. Greed has no heart. I know you, Gary.
Greed has heart, ever. It is the entrenched greed. That's why we can't solve a problem. It's so deep. So has America has this happened in America before? Yes. Is this time, in my opinion, worse? Yes, because our culture is so entrenched in so many things. Now, quickly as I can, the liar in chief. Guess who that is? The liar in chief. He brags. He's never wrong. This man is a sick man. He's not well. I feel bad. He's our only president. He's not well. Secondly, I submit this. I want to go a little bit further in the conversation. And you're right. We reach across and talk to Americans, and you met this man and talked to him face to face, and we can talk, and that's very, very important to talk to people. We don't agree, but we agree on a lot of other different things. Mm-hmm. But I want to bring the conversation a little bit. I think we need to challenge other Americans, and in my view, there's an increasing number of Americans who back this president, and we need to challenge them. We need to challenge every way we can. And, as Ben Franklin said, we say again, it's in a republic if we can keep it. Well, guess what? We may be past the breaking point. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong, too, Gary. My sense of it is that, the Supreme Court in the Buckley decision put us on this path. Reagan grabbed it and literally began the deconstruction of the New Deal. And, we've got to get back to core principles here or we're going to be in deep trouble. Gary, thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And at the core of American principles are things like compassion, caring for other people, understanding that we're all just humans here. And welcome back. Lauren in Twinsburg, Ohio. Hey, Lauren, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Thom Hartmann. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Lauren, you sound very, very faint. If you've got me on speaker, would you please put me on a regular phone or get your mouth closer to the microphone?
I certainly will, and I just did for you.
There we go.
First-time donator. I wanted to just let you know that here in Ohio, we're not all a bunch of Republican neocons. There are some people here with common sense, and when it comes to this Medicare for all, that's a very doable situation. I administered public health care plans for years in government finance, and I'm telling you that $4 trillion or $4.5 trillion a year is being paid for currently, and people need to be aware that the money is going into the healthcare system today from employers, employees, and donations from everybody who's ever worked in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not making it available to everybody. It's very important. It's extremely important that we do this for everybody.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And I would also just like to say one thing about abortion real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's talking about it from many perspectives, but, you know, in government, you can't take a piece of property from any property owner without compensating them for it. It's called eminent domain. If these people want to force people into having children, the one thing our government better do, and all these Republicans better consider, is I want a $100,000 trust fund set up for that child, for everyone they make these women have, and also $100,000 set up for a college fund.
Yeah.
And if they do that, put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if you caught the piece in the Washington Post yesterday. It was on the front page. In Alabama, I believe, it's illegal to get an abortion. And this young woman was raped. Her rapist went to prison for raping her. He is now getting out of prison, and he is suing for custody of her child. It is legal in Alabama for rapists to sue and get custody of the child that was conceived as a consequence of their rape. That's how sick and twisted these people are. Lauren, thank you for the call. Very, very, very well said. Kevin in Mainville, Ohio. Hey, Kevin, we got a minute to the break. What's up?
Hi, Tom. Long-time listener. I met you in Washington at the Supreme Court once, and I'm calling today. Thanks for your work. I was watching MSNBC. I'm in the tire store that had MSNBC on, and they allowed Bernie to start a statement of what his kind of socialism is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut off to hear what two commentators were going to say what Bernie means by his statement.
Right.
And we'll be, just a minute, we're going to go to President Trump for his statement. And I mean, it's just, I'm reading a book called Dark Money by Jane Mayer, and it's very depressing in many ways, but it's very revealing. And
it's a shocking book. It's a shocking book.
It's shocking.
I have read it, and it goes back to the origins of this, to the Powell Memo in '71, to the foundation of the creation of the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, and the Economic Policy Institute. There's just a whole bunch of these groups. Actually, EPI may be a progressive one, but it goes back to the foundation of all these groups, and then the Tea Party and the funding of the Republican Party and seizing control state by state by state. Kevin, spot on. And Bernie is, well, none of the progressive candidates are getting the kind of media coverage that either Joe Biden or Donald Trump are getting. And that's just it. That's the world we live in right now. I guess I'm not sure what to do about it. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And welcome back. Judy in Carpentersville, Illinois. Hey, Judy, what's on your mind today?
Hi. I'm afraid there's something really, really sinister going on that nobody's thinking
Judy,
about.
Could you please get your mouth closer to your microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Came on the scene.
No, I'm sorry. Judy, I've got to put you on hold, and Joyce, Judy's on line 7. Maybe you two can figure out how to make it sound better. Rich in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. Hey, Rich, what's up? Thanks for listening to Sirius XM.
Hey, Tom, I'm just concerned. I live here in what's central Pennsylvania, and I'm surrounded by extreme right-wing people. I mean, they think climate change is just a bunch of hooey. We've got a local talk show guy who says basically 3 hours a day that's all made up. If you ask them about the refugees, they say, well, if they don't want to be, divided from their children, stay the hell home. Just don't come here. And
stay home and die.
The attitude.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, I mean that's the mindset here, and I don't see how we can cooperate with these people or reach across the aisle or anything. I think they're just kind of a lost cause.
As long as the Supreme Court ruling in Buckley in '76 and Citizens United in 2010 stands that money is speech and therefore is protected by the First Amendment, and therefore if billionaires want to own their own favorite politicians or want to, helicopter money like we saw in Washington State. I live right across the river from Washington State, and when they had a carbon tax on the ballot there last year, they had this former Republican Attorney General or Secretary of State, whichever he was, who never mentioned the fact that he was a Republican, but he was a very nice sounding guy. And he was on talking about how, this giant tax is coming and this is going to cost us millions and millions of dollars. It's going to hurt you and blah, blah, blah. And it was just, they carpet bombed us. And so, I'm with you, Rich, in as much as, yes, we've got to figure out a way around that. And to paraphrase Bernie Sanders, frankly, we have to go against organized money with organized people. I don't know another way to do it. And organized people means waking people up, which means telling your friends and neighbors about the progressive media that you listen to and supporting your local progressive media. Speaking of which, Donald in Aurora, Illinois is listening on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Donald, what's up?
Tom, I want to just make it really quick. We got to win that Senate back.
Yes.
You remember Mitch McConnell, when Obama first got in office, he got together with a bunch of Republicans, and they made a pledge to destroy his administration no matter what the case. They're doing it again. He's already called himself the Grim Reaper. If we don't get that Senate back and we lose this House too, we're going to be up a creek. Yeah. Tell me if you think if we at least have the House and the Senate, would we be able to do much more damage to Donald Trump and this administration? Would we now be better off even if we don't get the presidency? Could we still go
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Donald. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And there's 20-some-odd Republicans up for re-election in this next cycle in 2020. So we need to be focusing on the Senate. I totally agree with you. Donald, thank you for the call. Michael in Bronx, New York. A quick one, Michael. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM.
Yes, Tom, and I hope you could pass this question to your future guests, and that is, why is there so much emphasis on the Mueller report as if that's the only damning bit of evidence to warrant impeachment and removal when you got other crimes, non-Mueller report related, non-Russia related? Perfect examples. Charlestown and the infamy there, thanks to Trump's rhetoric, when you got children being separated from their families even after a federal court said stop it and start reuniting families. And what's the two have in common? Resulting in casualties.
Yeah, and they're both
one peep from pro-lifers on this.
Yeah, and they're both symptoms of this fascist authoritarian mindset that Donald Trump so well represents. In New York, there's I just retweeted it actually. In New York, they're putting up little cages with little children in them, wrapped up in these silver kind of space blankets or whatever they're called. And simulacrums of children. I mean, they're not actually kids in there, but it looks like there's a child in there. And they're putting them on the streets all around New York. I hope that goes national. I mean, this is obscene what is going on. Anyhow, thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And tonight, 7 o'clock, Powell's Bookstore here, or 7:30 rather, Powell's Bookstore here in Portland, Oregon. And, the show rolls on. Thanks so much for being here. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It does require you. So please, get out there, get active, tag, you're it.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
fight back.